Welcome to the Awesome Business Podcast with your host, Ryan McPartlin. Guys, I've spent 25 years in the entertainment industry, best known as Captain Awesome from NBC's Chuck, or that guy from the Hallmark and Lifetime Christmas movies. The best part of my job is meeting a whole lot of extraordinary people from awesome businesses. That's what this podcast is about. I want you to meet and learn from these people too. We're going to pull back the curtain on actors, athletes, and entrepreneurs and the obstacles they overcame to star in their own success story. So join me and unleash your awesome. When I decided to host this podcast, I knew my first guest had to be somebody with podcast experience so they could teach us how to do this, right? So I called Jessica Hall. And thankfully, Jessica agreed to come on and share her journey from being a model to a host to now a mom influencer. And Jessica talks about everything from her days as a playmate to now her days hosting Playdates. She's amazing. She's a wealth of information. I can't wait for you to listen. Jessica Hall, so good to see you. How are you today?
I am doing great. I get to start my morning with you, Captain Awesome.
Well,
from
hey.
Awesome Town.
Well, welcome to the Awesome Business Podcast. You are such a delight. You have such great energy, and I'm so glad you're like my first guest. So here we go.
It's an honor, Ryan.
Let's go back to the beginning of the early aughts. And what drew you into the entertainment industry in the first place? What motivated you to be in it from day one?
You know, when I first started, it's obviously clearly, as you know, so different from, you know, I think it was senior year of 2001. So I just kind of cried for a second.
Good year.
It was a great year. Gosh. Anyways, I was this my first year in college. I was going into college because I graduated high school that year, and I don't know. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know much of anything. I technically wasn't really good at anything at that moment. Like sports wasn't a big thing I'm just being honest. Sports wasn't a big thing. I barely feel like I got by, but I was always, I was hosting everything for
You're
school.
hot?
I was this fear. No, I had breakfast 4 times and I paid for these. Anyways, I just knew that I just wanted to I loved being around people. I loved kind of entertaining. I loved hosting all the sports assemblies. I would do the spirit rallies. I would do all the ASB, which is Associated Student Body. And I remember I was going into college and my girlfriend was going to this big casting call, which I know you understand, but maybe explain to the audience exactly what a cattle call is.
Yeah, a cattle call is basically there's an audition for something. It could be for hosting, it could be modeling, it could be an acting job. And in our younger years, that was like just a group of people that would come like cattle to an audition. And they'd just group you into different groups and say, okay, you guys go stand over there. You guys stand over there. We're going to take these few. Am I right? Is that what it was like for you, your experience?
You didn't have to have an agent. It was a cattle call. Anyone could go at this time. I had no representation. I went with a girlfriend. She had an agent at the time, and she was like, we should go.
Where were you from?
So my dad was in the Army, so I was kind of stationed everywhere. I was born in Hawaii. My brother was born in Texas. My sister was born in Washington. But when my parents split, I ended up in Los Angeles County starting at 12.
Okay, so you were in proximity to the entertainment industry, so you could go to a cattle call. There wasn't a lot of that in Chicago where I grew up.
Yeah. I went to this cattle call for this show called Burned on MTV, and that was right when Singled Out was hot. Is it TRL or what is that show?
TRL, yeah.
TRL, yeah.
TRL, Totally Request Live. Carson Daly.
Yes.
Let's go. Come on.
We're their age. Anyway, so I was like, yeah, I'll go with you. I have nothing else to do, And I just remember it was 6 hours went by. There's so many girls. We had a script. I didn't even have a headshot. And I remember walking in and I could tell the casting agents, which is somewhat different from today, but it was a bunch of men just kind of sitting back behind a table and we had different scenarios and read the script. And this guy, I'll never forget, he was one of the main producers or I don't know, something for this show. And he just looked so annoyed. And I can't recall exactly what I had said, but I kind of called him out because I was like, I was here for 6 hours. It's my turn. And long story short, I ended up getting a call back. And I'm like, okay, a call back. What is this? My friend's like, wait, you got a call back. I had no agency. So she introduced me to her agency because I didn't even know how to handle it. Long story short, I ended up booking a show called Burned on MTV, and I had 30 episodes. I worked Monday through Friday. I literally had to go in and do like a prank show against all these guys. Their friends would set up their one friend, and he would lie about what he owns, who he dates, what he does, and I would kind of get him to, call him out on his bullshit, basically. But there's all these hidden cameras watching, and I'm called like the seducer / host. So I'd come in there and I would get him to say all these lies. The friends were watching in the back, watching it with their headphones live, exactly what had happened. And at the end, I would like lure into a room where all the playbacks of his lies would show with a bunch of hot women in this room. And basically, you just been burned.
That's amazing.
It was so
I
fun.
remember MTV was the biggest deal at that time. I know that it's just one of a million channels right now, but MTV, especially at that age, it was like, if you could just get enough money to be on Cribs, or maybe that you could get punked by Ashton Kutcher one day, you know, it was the whole thing was such a vibe, and it really dominated our culture at that time. So that's amazing. That's a great story.
But then right after that, that's when Punked happened, and they didn't pick up another season of Burned, but it was a great learning curve. I was like, okay, this was awesome. This is great. I booked my first job. Great. This is easy. Absolutely not. I thought after that, I would just like, I spent my money super fast. Ended up being like totally broke, living in Hollywood on top of this like garage, like this unit that was built above it, which nobody should have lived in it. And I just was like, okay, this is a little harder than I thought. So the hustle's real. I had 2 jobs. I was constantly still trying to make those auditions, and a lot of people don't realize, I know you do, and maybe veterans in the entertainment business, there was no social media. The internet was not fast. We had no phones that worked the way we I had a Razor or a BlackBerry.
No, I started with a pager in our industry.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Things weren't as easy. And to be able to get around to these auditions in LA of me not knowing exactly where to go, I had MapQuest printed out, or like the Thomas Guide.
I had the Thomas Guide, yes.
So
explain what the Thomas Guide is for people who don't know.
Oh gosh, it's basically a printed map that's like this thick, and you just keep it in your car.
and you get the coordinates. You would get the coordinates of where the address for the audition was. So you have to sit with your, like, this is why we know the streets of LA so well and all the freeways, because you would have to map your entire day out. And you're like, oh, no. I'm going to take the 170 to Cahuenga, to the 101 to Cahuenga. Oh, you're not taking the 405, are you? Don't touch the 405 at that hour. It was just such a...
You need to see the red marks, Ryan. You didn't know how busy things were going to be. Like, now we can look at what's going to take us this long.
We learned. We were just sitting... Because there was honestly didn't even have a cell phone when I moved out here. It was a pager. And I'll never forget that when I was sitting with a friend of the family who was a doctor, a pager was a badge of honor for a doctor, because it meant that whatever they were doing, everything had to, stand still for them to go, I have an emergency. And I was like, I think I have a Pepsi audition. Got to get away. He's like, you're leaving the table for that? I'm like, it's an emergency, He's like, he was so pissed that I had a pager, because it was this weird shift in, what you would carry around for status, And then I was proud of that pager, but then I had to use my calling card for a payphone. We don't even have payphones anymore,
I know.
Where did you get the confidence to throw the attitude in the first audition? Because
funny. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just want to know where that came from.
Last night, I just did that again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do better at that.
Hey, no. We could talk over each other. Don't even worry about it. I'll clip it out afterwards. I'll spend 10 hours editing.
No, you should use that. That's funny. I like
the
realness.
These are teaching me already.
No, it's great. It's great, because this is. I'll continue on how I got to the podcast. I mean, if we continue with this,
we've got hours. We've got hours.
I don't even know where to. I've been around. The confidence, I don't think I truly reached, honestly, the age of 40, and I'm 41. So I don't I did not have the confidence I wish I did. I'm so impressed now with women especially, to speak their mind and how they feel about certain things. But back in the day, like when I was first in the industry, I always tell myself I could write a book just from the auditions alone to what I experienced to some of those casting calls. Like those Carl's Jr. commercials should have never went down the way they did. Some of those auditions I went out for.
Oh, wow.
And the way, I could go, oh my goodness. And then going to the
Go
Playboy
ahead.
world.
No, well, before we go to Playboy, Carl's
and there's so
audition.
much.
Please, let's go. Let's dig in.
So, Ryan, to think back, I really try hard to have confidence. I will say, not now. I think as you get older and more mature, more comfortable in your life and who you are, it's a lot different. But, back in the day, there's tons of beautiful women out there. Everybody wanted a piece of, the Hollywood limelight or just the success of being in Hollywood. And I remember a lot of those commercials I went out for, and very, very specifically, I remember the Carl's Jr. one. They want you in a room, and there was hardly any women, if none at all, in this casting room. Sometimes I feel like they called friends in because there's way too many people that should be in this room for
sure.
A Carl's Jr. casting where, not just Carl's Jr. And there's other castings I just can't recall they were every day, so I can't recall everyone. But getting in a swimsuit with other girls in a room, like where you're not coming in with a swimsuit, it's like you start out with your clothes and then you have to take it off because the commercial required you in a swimsuit. So they have to see, understandable. But the way it was like done, these girls would come in a room, take off their clothes in swimsuits under. It's like, okay, now dance, but there's no music, but let's like dance. Or the next one that I thought was crazy is to fake an orgasm because you're eating a hamburger and you're literally so happy. I'm not kidding. I was like, oh my gosh. Like,
that's how I booked my first audition.
Are you serious?
Faking an orgasm. Yeah.
Did you
Yeah,
really?
it's funny you said, I didn't even remember that until you just said that out loud. It was for a Comedy Central commercial. And they were like, can you just fake an orgasm? And then the whole joke was we're going to pan out and then you're just going to be bouncing on a ball, like a bouncy ball. And I was like, okay, I'll do my best. And I was like, if I just start small, just go and just start like, ooh. And they started laughing when I was doing that because everyone just comes in and just goes right for the moaning, I think. I was like,
okay.
In my head, I was like, just start small. Just start small. You go, oh, okay. And I was like, and then it built and built and built. And I won't do the whole thing here because you got to pay if you want to see that now. But I booked it. It was my first audition ever. I was like, this is easy. I'm moving to Hollywood. And
did you feel comfortable in that room?
I felt comfortable because it was humor. It wasn't, I wasn't lined up. There's plenty of uncomfortable moments that I've had that your husband, Kyle, and I will, be able to share. That might be a whole separate podcast. We could talk about our Abercrombie days.
Yeah. I like that.
Hotel rooms with photographers, getting into underwear and taking Polaroids and then having them like go, Ryan, I know you want to be an actor and I've shot Leo. I've shot, Matt. And you got to relax your forehead and putting their hands on my forehead as I'm in my underwear, only the two of us in a hotel room at Shutters in Santa Monica, and everybody else cleared out. I was like, if you want me to relax, this is probably the worst way to get me to relax my face.
See?
I'm like,
men can relate too.
I'm like, just back up. Give me a second, and then you take your photographs. And literally, I'm in my tidy whities. And I was like, but I also knew Mark Wahlberg had just done the Calvin Klein campaign. And I was like, and then he got all these movies and everything. So in my head, I'm like, all right, there's a certain line, obviously I'm not going to cross, but how many kids did they push to that line? It weirded me out, but it was the industry. And I know you had a great podcast of flashbacks that we'll talk about later, but there was a lot that was wrong. as fun as those days were, there was a lot that was wrong with the industry and still is. It's just, they find better ways to be seedy and hide it, I'm sure. And that's
right. The great way to put it. I just think back when we started out, it was easier to get away with it because there was no like documentation of it. I think now, just having, technology alone, like being able to record maybe an uncomfortable situation or like being young and seen.
Yeah.
And they would do that to me all the time. Like these casting guys, they would always say, well, it worked, Jenny McCarthy or Anna Nicole. Like they would say stuff like that. You're like, like you just said with Mark Wahlberg. And so they would get in your mind. But it was one of those things that I'm so proud to this day that I kept most of my morals and values. And I saw there's so many moments, and I talk about this on my old podcast, but where I could have been certain levels, but I always knew in my heart, in my mind, everything that this is wrong. And I'm not willing to do this to go that far. But seeing others that I knew doing that, and I saw them succeed in that way, but it just never was right for me. And it never felt right. Twice. No. And I think like you have, in this business to have a long marriage, a good marriage, and to be able to have the friends we're doing this, it says a lot, I think.
It was, I think that's what we bonded over. First of all, we live in the same town. We have had long, successful relationships that started early in this industry when we were babies.
Yeah.
And 1 year equals 7 like dog years of being a Hollywood marriage. It's true because you don't know many people that made it or at least stayed here and made it. And
it's the temptations and all the lies and all the things that are being told. And it's like you have to choose between your career or this or there was tons of obstacles.
There's always someone who wants something from you.
Mm-hmm.
There's always somebody there's always forces at work against your marriage. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But go on because I've thought of 10 more stories that I could tell, but I want to hear your story.
I don't even know where it left off.
You were in the Carl's Jr., like making love to a burger in your swimsuit.
Oh my gosh. Well, knowing that you went through it as well, I feel less alone. So I appreciate that. But where I was just going with it is there was just so many moments, I think, in this industry that I was like, is this the right thing for me? Am I doing the right? And, I can't say like, everything was not okay because my next step I did was obviously Playboy. And everyone can have their own thoughts and a process about exactly how Playboy happens. But it's not exactly, how do I say it? I mean, listen, I know today there are so many stories about, the mansion or things that have gone on with the girls or the girlfriends or what they're saying. I'm not saying it doesn't have, I'm just saying for my personal experience, I didn't witness like anything too crazy. But that doesn't mean
it was a big deal. It was a big deal at the time. I mean, Cindy Crawford, there were so many iconic female actresses, models that posed for Playboy. And it became a big deal in our culture. And to be honest, the articles were freaking great too. They're really good journalists in Playboy.
I keep that a lot. I thought that was like a joke, but no, I do actually hear that a lot. Like the articles are great. And I'm like, so are the tits, but okay. But when I did it, I just want to say when I did it, it was in the early 2000s. It was like before 2000, before the Girls Next Door, before all, the whole different aspect of the TV, of course. But it was more of a thing like I always say, if I did it now with social media, would I do? I don't know. Because back then, again, the internet wasn't even it was a thing, obviously, but it wasn't what it is today. There was no social media. There was no picture phones. There's none of that. So like doing this, and I was so uncomfortable. I remember the very first time I shot, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And then the amount of, I think everything happens for a reason. And after I shot it, I wasn't just like, okay, I'm done. I'm a Playboy girl. I'm this and that. No. I was like, how much further can I work within the company? How can I make money? How can I do this? And keep in mind, when I shot, I was already dating my now husband. And you're in this room and you don't feel like it's as big as it's actually going to become. There's like 3 people. Everyone is extremely professional. Hef was very, very kind, very pleasant. I didn't it's crazy because when you do like something so small and not realizing like actually how big it is and how it is going to change your life at that moment, it's pretty crazy. And
Well,
I will say, it's
tell
like,
me about this and I don't mean to cut you off, but I really do want to know about the business aspect of it when you went in, because it's the title of our podcast is The Awesome Business. And for you, I know you've been business savvy from day one. Where does that come from? And how did you leverage working at Playboy and posing for Playboy to going right in there and saying, I want to do this differently, and I want to look at the entire business model of whatever it is you wanted to achieve?
this guy comes up to me, gives me a business card because that's how they did it back in the day. And it was like a Playboy little symbol. And I remember, oh my gosh, absolutely not. Like I at the time when I was approached, I was still a virgin. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this. This is crazy. And then he goes, and then, I was with my friend at the time, and she goes, have you heard about like the infamous Playboy parties? I was like, no. And she's like, well, email him and let's go to this party. Let's try to see. So from that moment, I emailed him and I went to this Midsummer Night Dream party in 2002.
I think I was there with Danielle.
No way.
That was the only time
definitely-
we ever went. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. But I'm there, and
Yeah.
there's like Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, Leo.
Yep.
There's all these
Leo,
people.
everybody. Yep.
And I was like, what? Where am I? What is this place? Like I remember going up to the bar because, I wasn't of age. And I remember being like, can I buy? And people would laugh. Like, I mean, not realizing you didn't have to pay for anything. Like it was like,
Yeah.
wait, I've never in my life been to a
I
Hollywood
remember
party.
Pauly Shore was in the grotto.
She's
and
always there.
I know, but I didn't know that. Like this was a kid from Chicago, and I'd watched Pauly Shore. So I was like, who's in the grotto? And I peeked in. I was like, oh my God, it's Pauly Shore. That's amazing. That made my night. And then Scott Baio. I'd see Scott Baio everywhere I'd go. That was amazing.
Yeah. She ended up marrying one of a girl that used to live there.
Okay.
Yeah. So that makes sense that he was, So when I first got to the party, they would take a Polaroid of you. So you check in, take a Polaroid. Yes, I said that.
Yeah.
And you'd write down your name and number and throw it in this box. Didn't know what it was for. Didn't really care. I was going to Playboy Mansion. Went up to the mansion, hung out, did my thing. I was a little bit more shell-shocked than like actually having fun because I was like, holy cow, what is going on? Like, this is crazy. How am I here? One of those moments. Leaving. A couple weeks later, I get a call from Hef. And he's like, I would like to invite you up for a Sunday fun day or fun in the sun. That's what it was called. And I go, fun in the sun. Okay. And I was like, can my mom go? And he was like, no, this invite's for you. And I was like, okay. And I was so reluctant. I was like, should I go? Should I go? Should I go? Long story short, I ended up going by myself because that, it's a very tight security. Like I went up there and everyone is so calm. He has these like girlfriends. He's playing backgammon with a few of his friends. I was like, wait, I just went to this like rager party and I'm showing up now. And it was just like the most clean, peaceful. Everyone was just literally hanging out. Girls were, not really talking so much, but I didn't realize a lot of them were just invited after that party from their phone number and their Polaroid. So not many people knew each other. I could order what I want. There's people coming up like, drinks, this, that. And I was like, okay. There's like 20 people there. That was it. And then at night, there was like a dinner and a movie after. And I was like, no, I think I'm going to go home. So that was like inside the house. And I just got a little nervous. I went home and then I got a call and to let me know like, hey, we'd like to put you on like a permanent Sunday fun day list. And I was like, okay, so I get to eat for free. I get to go. I was like,
yeah,
I'm a broke girl right now. I can't book a show
Fill
for
your
the life
purse.
of me.
Fill your purse.
So, I know, like, so anyways, I started going up there and I just fell in love with kind of, I never, I by the time, also I quit school, booking that show, I quit school. So it was like my sorority, but it wasn't as like people thought. It was like a crazy caddy. It wasn't, it's so hard to explain
Worked
because
the
everyone
pillow
has their own
fights every
perspective.
night.
No, and I wasn't trying to be a girlfriend. I wasn't trying to date the celebrities that would come in. I had a boyfriend. And so I think I got to enjoy it a lot more because I had that. And then the next
Did
couple
you feel
times
the pressure on your relationship though, and to not be in a relationship while you were in that circle?
No, so what I was saying is, so I walked up to Hep and I said, hey, I have a serious boyfriend, would love to bring him up here. Hep was like, absolutely. And from that moment on, he allowed Kyle. And well, the second he met Kyle, I didn't know everyone was like kind of put through a test. Kyle was very respectful, never once clearly wasn't a looky-loo, whatever. His shining moment at the Playboy Mansion, which his takeaway is that he beat Captain America in volleyball, which is Chris Evans at the time. It was right when his movie was coming out.
I was up for that, by the way. I was up for that, so that's a little dagger.
Yeah, so
but that's okay.
Have love, and he was more than supportive, so that made it a lot easier. That I was able to experience this along with my boyfriend, who became my fiance, who became my husband. So
good.
I really love that I was able to share so many of those moments from the Playboy Mansion with him. And then from there, when you asked about the business, so after posing for Playboy, I was like, what else could I possibly do? How can I work within this business? Playboy is one of the most recognizable symbols in the world. Like, how can I evolve? Like, what else can I do? So I started doing all the little things, from like tours of the Playboy Mansion. I would just give tours of the grounds for potential people that won the best, or people that won, I don't know, giveaways or whatever it may be, or the SVs would like rent the mansion out. So I would give tours. And then I went on to, I spent my spring breaks, when I'm, 20 years old, in like Cancun and Cabo on like a Playboy tour, signing, autographs or going to the clubs. But I just want to point out that Playboy was a very strict brand. Like at the time, like we didn't drink. We were very timely on everything. It was a job.
There's no way I could fit all of this into just one episode. So make sure to check out part 2. Download the rest of our interview with Jessica Hall. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you liked what you heard, it would mean a lot if you took 2 seconds and left a 5-star review. Hit that follow or subscribe button for future episodes and share with as many friends as possible. Because business can be tough, but together we can be a little more awesome.